The Rant is back. Okay, for those of you that have no idea what The Rant is, I started this show on YouTube about 5 years ago. Was doing it on the weekly. It was called The Weekly Rant back then. It will not be called The Weekly Rant going forward because I got lots of stuff I'm doing and I can't be doing these all the time. So I plan to throw in some rants whenever I get a chance. For some of you that never saw one of the rants, here's a couple clips to kind of refresh your memory a little bit.
Sao Paulo, Brazil, Carnival, this freaky thing being pushed by a whole bunch of people from behind. There's this. You are scumbags. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Weekly Rant. As you can see, I'm in San Jose for the Shooting Stars Bay 101 event. Or am I? Oh, that's a green screen. Somebody figured out how to do green screen. Hello, McFly. We're on to you, McFly. This guy's been booted from so many jobs, he makes Lindsay Lohan look like a good hire. On Twitter last week, everyone's favorite bust-out, Jean-Robert Ballon, had this to say. It's a very bad idea to have dentist prescribed Vicodin next to my bed after dropping 140K straight. Hashtag broke trippin'.
You call him gonna be all over, baby. You see that? What make him call?
What I can promise you guys going forward with The Rant is positivity. We're gonna focus on positivity, and I can also promise you that we're gonna have much better hair. The best hair money can buy, right? Much better, right? Than that blonde thing. I had like 7 of them, tried to make it look like 300. Eventually I lost the battle, so, you know. So the first thing I wanna talk about in this rant is I did an interview with a couple guys, I won't name them, and you know, at the end of the interview, they told me, you know, beforehand, listen, whatever you don't want in there, you can take out, and they gave me like sort of approval, if you will. And they sent me some titles to see if they'd be okay with me, you know, and I looked at these titles and they were so negative. It was like Negreanu trashes Helmuth, or, you know, just these over-the-top kind of titles. And I was like, why are we going so negative with these titles? We said a lot of positive things in this 30-minute interview, and you're focusing on, you know, me saying that I think Phil played a hand badly and then titling it like that. And really nice guys, you know, they're not bad guys, but they just came back to me and said, you know, this is what we've noticed works. That made me sad a little bit. You know, it's kind of just sad that negativity is what works. These like trashy tabloid-like headlines are what people respond to. You know, it's like watching a train wreck a little bit. And I told them, I said, guys, listen, I get that that's what you guys do with your show, but as long as I have a say, just turn it into a positive title. Because I'd like to see more of that rather than just focusing on like these headlines that are grabbers that work, unfortunately, that also just demean people, trash people, gossip about people, especially when you don't know the whole story. One of the guys I follow on YouTube regularly, a really inspirational dude named Prince EA. And Prince, what he does, and he's been doing it for a long time, guy's got millions of followers, he focuses on positive messages, inspiring messages that are like designed to change the world, to make people wake up to the bad habits that they have, to connection, to human emotion, to love, all these positive things, right? So recently, you know, I stepped upon a video where it was like a response to the haters. And I'm thinking, this guy has haters? How do you hate this guy? So I watched the video, and it was a response to essentially this guy named BoyinBand, who reminds me so much of like the keyboard warriors that I deal with, you know, on online forums and things like that. It was just like so much like that, where this guy dedicated an entire video, he made a song about Prince EA, all trashing him, calling him dangerous, right? And then, you know, obviously Prince, of course, decided it was important to defend himself, and he did so in a very eloquent way. Not only, first of all, he refuted the points made and showed evidence to dispel them and prove that the guy was wrong, but on top of that, left it with a really positive message in the end, which is difficult to do when this guy just comes at you hardcore and spends all this time and energy to literally break you down and rip you to shreds when he's also wrong about most of the things that he said. So take a little clip here. This is Prince responding to the claim that, you know, the studies that he uses or that he cites are bogus.
Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish.
Now this struck me as absolute crap, and it turns out that's because it's absolute crap. And after hours of searching, I couldn't find the actual study at all.
Hours of searching.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kinda ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch.
Now, Prince also goes after BoyinBand for another claim that he makes, and he does so with video evidence. So let's play that clip.
You picked and chose to take words out of context to make it seem like I said something I didn't, and make it seem like I had a position that I don't. There's more violence on the screen than ever before.
And yet this is the least violent period in human history.
There's more violence on the screen than ever before. Violence on the screen and ever screen. On the screen, bro. On the screen. To all the people trying to achieve something greater than themselves, know that people will come at you. People will wait for you to slip. They are waiting for me to slip, and I might slip. The flesh is imperfect. So is the mind. I have, do, and will continue to make mistakes, period. But I'm going to keep going while I have breath in my body to try to make a positive impact on the world and not worry about what haters think about me. Because you know when all the haters are going to get together and love you, man? When you land in a box like this. So I'm going to finish with this. Maintain compassion for the haters. Everybody I mentioned, don't reach out to them with anger. We forget they too are human beings going through issues and problems. So give them love.
Now that's really great advice from Prince EA, and I gotta admit, you know, it's very easy for me to let things slide off my back, but the idea of being compassionate is something that is a constant work for me. Like understanding, really, when I take a deeper look, when people are doing that or in that place, it's typically comes from like deep insecurities, whatever issues they've got going on, whether it was their childhood or their current status in life. Like typically when you see people like attacking others and like trying to tear them down, it comes from some sort of need to, you know, feel more validated by stepping on others. And so, you know, he makes a really good point about being compassionate towards people like that as well. And as I've gotten older and matured more, I've been able to do that a little bit better than I had in the past. In the past, my rant might have looked a little bit different than it does right now. It might have came with some, you know, but, you know, with age comes wisdom and compassion and a deeper insight into how your actions and what you say affect those around you. The next thing I want to talk about is YouTube content. Now, I don't have a deep understanding of fair use. I'm not a lawyer, but I've always been a big believer that if I'm going to use somebody's content, I reach out to them, just get permission. And I did that even with Prince EA, even though I don't have to, because I know that I can take clips for YouTube. But I wanted him to know, you know, listen, I'm going to use some of your stuff in my video. And it just feels like the respectful way to do business, to build relationships, to, you know, I don't know, just make sure there are no gray areas. And if there are, just take the respectable approach. So that's what I did here with GSN. So a lot of people were thinking that I was responsible for getting GSN to pull videos. Well, I don't have a relationship with GSN, okay? I have a relationship with somebody who does, who I thought owned the content. So I reached out to him and I said, listen, there's a lot of great high-stakes poker's hands that I would like to cut up. One of which, of course, is the Gus Hansen hand where I had quads against quads. I did cut that up, and I'll release that for you. I did it years ago, like 10 years ago. Before all, like, I've been doing hand breakdowns for 15 years. It's funny when people say, oh, like, dude, you're totally copying. I'm like, what? I've been doing this 15 freaking years before a lot of these guys were even playing poker. So anyway, so I reached out to my contact who I figured owns it. He says, okay, let me double check to make sure that it's okay to use, because I really wanted to cut up some videos and make sure that I reached out. I've done that with PokerStars. That's why I can use their clips. I've done that with Poker Central, so I have permission to use their clips as well. I didn't know about high stakes poker. I saw other people doing it, but I don't know. I don't want any gray areas. I want to make sure that my relationships are, you know, I don't like take advantage of my relationships in any way. So the word came back to me and they said, absolutely not. That they're not happy about this practice. They don't want people doing this, whatever. So I dropped it. I'm like, okay, cool. I have plenty of hands on Poker Central and PokerStars to do that. Well, weeks later, apparently they sent it to cease and desist and they started pulling some videos that had their content in them, claiming rights and whatnot. So I didn't have any hand in that. I don't tell GSN what to do with their content. All I did was take the responsible approach from my perspective and say, listen, if I'm going to use your content, I'm going to ask permission. And that's what I'm going to continue to do anytime I do a video where I take people's content. Now, if you're asking me, do I think this makes sense for GSN to do this? Absolutely not. I mean, I think that having their stuff out there, they can monetize it, they can do a lot of things, and I would hope that fair use would cover that. So I don't think it's just like from a business perspective a great decision on their part, but I don't run GSN. I have nothing to do with GSN, so they make up their own rules. The same is true with ESPN and the World Series of Poker. You can't use those either, as far as I was told, because there's a cost. An ESPN production, you have to pay upwards of $3,000 per minute to use their footage, so I won't be doing any hands from the World Series of Poker. The next thing I want to talk about is Rake, everybody's favorite subject, right? A video was released a while back that took a snippet of a 30-minute conversation I'd had with Richard Aberg, who we were discussing all types of things, from bonuses to rake back to all types of different things. And within that 30-minute conversation, I came up with several analogies, extreme analogies that look like this or like that. So what happened was one small snippet, much like what happened with Prince EA, was taken completely out of context.
You picked and chose to take words out of context to make it seem like I said something I didn't and make it seem like I had a position that I don't.
And also, not actually, and misrepresenting completely my position on it. What I was saying essentially was this. If, okay, hypothetical, if you see a game that's got a ridiculously high rake, right, too high for any pros to play because they won't play it, imagine like the game flow, right? So you're going to have, who's going to play in that game? Typically, recreational players who don't care about rake don't care about losing because nobody's going to beat the game if the rake's too high. Secondly, they probably play pretty loose. Thirdly, they probably play pretty fast. Probably have a lot of fun when they do. So if that were to have the effect for those specific players, it'd probably be good for that specific game in that extreme example. Does that mean that I'm pro upping the rake? I've never said that in my life. I've never actually really taken a position either way. I've always believed that a company has the right to charge whatever they choose, and the consumers have the right to say whether or not they're going to play or not. But the idea that I'm for rake or that I'm for it, and I get it on the comments all the time from a lot of the trolls, it's actually a little bit insulting and frustrating to take what I said out of context and to actually make it seem as though that's my position, right? Sort of puts me in a weird spot because I end up having to defend myself. So a lot of people said, you know what, you should mention it in the video. You should talk about it and explain. So my position was, first and foremost, designed to illustrate that the primary reason for net depositors' losses, the primary reason is they lose it to the other players. The secondary reason is they lose to rake. So if a net depositor loses $100 on the site, the majority of that money is not going to the site. It's going to other players who win the money in the game, okay? That's a fact. Now, I used another analogy, extreme analogy, where imagine you had Bob and Joe, who are equally bad, right? They're just terrible, okay? Now, they have a $5 rake per hand, and they're playing 10, 20 blind, no limit hold'em, deep, right? Now, they're both gonna lose, and they're both gonna lose whatever they're going to lose over 100 hands. Now take that same situation where you take just Bob, and now Bob plays against the best heads-up player in the world, okay? So Bob, best heads-up player in the world, but the rake's only $2. Wow, 40% of the rake of the other one. Where do you think Bob's going to do better over 100 hands or over an hour, right? He's going to lose both ways, right? He's going to lose faster to the pro because the pro is going to beat him for more money. So this isn't me saying, now this is important, this isn't me saying I think rake should be so high that no pros can play. And in fact, the last topic we're going to talk about is designed specifically for professional players who want to battle it out with no rake. PokerStars has introduced something that I think is a game changer, okay? It's the PokerStars All-Stars with also a Masters level where essentially anybody who's won the designated amount of money during the last 12 months is eligible to play in this promotion where there is no rake. You can play against other recreational players, not recreational, regular players who have had similarly positive results over the last 12 months. And on top of that, on top of all that, there's $100,000 being added to the leaderboard prize for the biggest winners at both levels, both the All-Stars level and the Masters level. Now, a lot of pros, for a while have been complaining about, the landscape of high-stakes online poker. It's too tough, obviously, because these guys are geniuses now at the all-star level. On top of that, the bonuses were cut for 5, 10 and above. The rake maybe is higher than they feel like is beatable. So this is a response, and I'm very, very happy to see this happen. In the last couple of years, we've obviously, had some things, happen that weren't exactly player friendly in terms of the pro section, but this is, okay? Now, what's important to note too, it says this at the bottom of the wording, it says like, this doesn't mean if you're a pro, you have to go play there. You don't have to play. If you don't want to play, this is not even have anything to do with you. You can continue to play in the games you want. In fact, you can play in the regular games and play in this if you choose to. But if you ever have some sort of like heads up for roles like Kate Hall, Mike Dentale kind of stuff, you know, you could play on Stars, no rake, go to war. Now, it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. A lot of you were asking about Pot Limit Omaha. And whether or not that can be a part of it. For now, I think it makes sense to have 2 tiers, very specific, so that the player pool can be relatively large. If we have too many tiers, or like at different sections and too many game formats in the early development of this program, you might not see enough liquidity potentially. So if it works and it works well, I don't see why not in the future. Big Poppy and the rest of them can have their PLO and they have their promotions and they can play reg on reg action. I think from the Railbirds perspective, this is what they want to see. They want to see the pros playing against each other at the highest levels. So I think it's fantastic, and I'm really excited. When they actually told me about this idea, I was a little bit shocked. I'm thinking, so you're going to charge them no rake and give them $100,000? Like, not one or the other? Like, how about, I was just surprised that they were willing to do this. But I think that they're fully aware of, the brand damage that took place based on the changes that, from their perspective, were necessary, and they had to happen. I was very vocally opposed to the way in which it rolled out. I was hoping to delay it 1 year. The wheels were already in motion. There's nothing to be, could be done there. But I'm very, very excited about this. I think this is definitely more than just a bone being thrown to the professional poker playing community. And I can't see any downside. Like, if you think, I'm sure people will find it because, as Prince mentioned, haters gonna hate. But I think this is a real positive. I think this is a real boost for online poker. I'm glad to see that PokerStars initiated this. And again, where would you play now? If you want to play against the best in the world, now there's like no reason why you wouldn't do this in this environment in All-Stars against the best players in the world, because you pay no rake and you get extra money. Well, that's all I got for you this week's rant, my friends. Like I said, this is not going to be the weekly rant like it was before. I was on point back then, like every week pumping one out, and I was editing them myself and all that kind of stuff. And it's really fun. I really do enjoy it. You can expect to continue to see the Monday rollouts of the poker tips, the Thursday, which may change to Wednesday, hand breakdown video, and then I got something else in the works for Thursdays, which I think is pretty cool. If you want more of this and other blah, 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 me just rambling for hours, you can check out the podcast. You can check it also here on YouTube, or you can go to Full Contact Poker. You can go to iTunes and check Full Contact Poker podcast, and you'll find it there. So until next time, my friends, the rant is over.